Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, and I am continuing on with what I call the torch bike. It's what I've nicknamed this bike. If you haven't seen the previous videos or understand why I call it that, you might go back and search the channel a few videos back when we started on this. You'll get the idea. Just go back and watch a couple of them. I think this is video 3, maybe 4 on this bike. And for those guys who have been following along and watching this series, you might notice that there's a few more parts on this than what was on it at the end of the last video. And quite honestly, I don't need to film everything. You know, it's just bolting on parts. So like shocks and the swing arm, and I even threw the exhaust on it. And as I was doing all that, I thought, well, you know what? I'm just going to continue to bolt parts on it. And if I run into something that has an issue or something that's worthy of filming, then I'll stop and we'll pick up the camera then. Well, it's happened. So it's on the handlebars. I bought these bars off of a place out of California called SoCal Mini Trail, and I'm not unhappy with them. They're a decent looking bar, but I've run into an issue. The levers, now these are TB Parts levers. These are nice levers, they're correct. And when I go to put it on to mount the lever to these handlebars, the curvature, the angle that they have this piece is off, and it will not allow the lever to go up far enough to get centered in the mounting hole, so I cannot put the bolt through it to get it to mount the lever. I'm gonna grab a handheld, bring you in a little closer so you understand exactly what I'm talking about. I'm not exactly sure if this will show up any better, but hopefully maybe you can see it. But I don't know if you can see that the hole, the lever, there's still material here that's covering the hole, and I've got a gap. The lever has more of a straight line here where this kind of curves, and if I try and fit that curve, well, then it pushes the hole toward the outside of the handlebar, and I still don't line it up. So there's nowhere that I can put this lever that will I can get the bolt to go through. So I think what I'm going to do, I hate to do it, is I don't want to take the chrome off, but I think what I want to do is actually grind off some on the handlebar here and kind of straighten this line out on both pieces to match the line that I have here. So that's the plan, and then by taking this off, it'll allow me to push the lever up a little bit farther, and hopefully it'll go in there. So let's go give that, I'm gonna take the handlebar off, take it back into the shop, and see if I can't just take off a little bit of material. I hate to do it, take the chrome off of that, but I think that's the way to go. I don't know if it shows up on camera or not, but that's a much better angle. And yes, will allow me to bolt that lever on there. You know what? It's still a little thick on the backside. When I bring the lever around, I'm catching here because it's too thick between the edge of the screw and this side. So I need to take it back off and take some back off of here, so when as it makes the bend, that probably is enough movement, but I think I'll go ahead and take a little bit off. And then I have to do the exact same thing to the bar on the other side, because it does the same thing as this. Both of them are at an angle that you cannot put the lever in. So I'm gonna take that back off, and I'm gonna take a little bit off of this back side so that makes the turn smoothly. All right, I'm pretty happy with that now. I took a little bit of material off the back side here so that when it makes that turn, the lever doesn't run into it, and that's much, much smoother operation. Now, I actually have one more mod that I have to do to this perch. Now, I'm sure my camera angle here might not show it very well, but the way these cables work, there's a little step down right here that fits through the hole on the perch. And I don't deal enough with a clutch bike to know if, what exactly is going on here, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, if I am mistaken, somebody will correct me, but I believe the 4-speed bikes, that hole is a little bit bigger because this clutch cable that I believe is correct for a stock H bike, it does not fit through that hole. I think that is designed for a rear brake cable on a 3-speed model. These handlebars, I believe, are sold as K0 bars, but not HK0 bars. So anyway, what I've got is this. This is measuring 231 thousandths of an inch. And the hole is somewhere 215 or so. So it's a little bit small. So what I'm going to do is attempt to take a 15/64 drill bit, which is 235 thousandths, and I'm going to try and drill that hole out. And then hopefully that cable end will fit through there. Doesn't take much. We're only talking a few thousandths of an inch. Actually, it goes this way, doesn't it? But for camera, either way, it doesn't really matter for your view. Not quite big enough yet. We might have to get a little bit bigger drill bit. There we go. And see how that fits through that hole. So now I can run it this way. Perfect. And then put the lever on. So if you buy a set of these bars, be prepared that you may have to alter the angle here to get the lever to fit. And if you are putting an engine in that requires a hand clutch, you may have to drill that little hole out right there. I think it will be fine on the other handlebar for the brake lever, for the brake cable. For rims and tires on this bike, I've got multiple sets of old clone tires that I've taken off where I've swapped them and put bigger tires. And so I've got a bunch of these. I've got 3 or 4 sets of these. They have the 3.5 by 10 tires on them, which are really kind of small. Oh, that didn't work. Well, maybe we can get it apart without taking that out. And so I'm going to just take the tires off of here and use the rims. And in the past, these tires, since they haven't been on here for 50 years, they typically come off of these rims fairly easy. Nope, like that. See if we get lucky on the second side. Oh, yeah. That's the nice thing about using those. Don't have to fight with them. They haven't had a chance to rust on there. So I'll take that other set apart, and then now we'll have rims, and I've got some new tires to put on them. Put a little bit of air in the tube and put the tube in the tire. put some air in it. The tires that I put on these rims, I got them from SoCal Mini Trail, and they are Speed 4x10s. Speed is the only name on it. That's all I can tell you. I'll put a link in the description, but I wanted to kind of do a side-by-side comparison. Hopefully you guys can see that, the height difference between the 3.5x10 and the 4x10s, considerably bigger tire. And then this is an original Bridgestone trail wing. Now, of course, it's worn, but the Speed tire is still probably a good 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch taller than this one. And I don't know how much air pressure I've got in it. I've got it pretty taut, so I might have a little much in there. But anyway, if you're looking for tires, seems like it's a decent tire, DOT rated. So anyway, I'll put a link in the description, SoCal Mini Trail. All right, guys, so I spent the morning and rebuilt the back tire here. I did put a new sprocket on it, 33 tooth maybe. Put new brake shoes on it. Painted the hub. I went ahead and painted the brake plate. I didn't take the time to polish it or take off all the old paint that was painted black, if you remember right. I wire wheeled it and took off some of the paint. And I don't have the brake pedal yet, nor the rod and all that good stuff, but I just wanted to get the tire on it so we can kind of take a look at it, see what we think. Obviously still have the front to do, but man, yep, looks pretty good to me. All right, I'm gonna get that buttoned up. All right, so we're now a few days more down the road. As you can see, I've put the tires and finished them up. I've got the cables all up here on the front, those handlebar levers. I've got everything all worked out there. Today, I need to do a couple little fabrication jobs. I've got these foot pegs that I buy off of Amazon. I'll put a link in the description. They bolt right on. They fit good. You know, they feel good. The only problem is the kickstand is a few inches too long. So I need to shorten that kickstand and get that welded back together. And then the other fabrication thing I need to do is on this exhaust. I'm not exactly sure where I got this exhaust now. I buy so many of them in different places. It was an eBay or Amazon buy or something. It bolted right in. The bracket was even in the right spot. My problem with this exhaust, it hangs down too far here and will not allow the engine guard to go up. So I'm going to remove the exhaust, and that little collar that fits up inside the head, I'm going to cut that off and lower it down onto this pipe a little farther to hopefully raise that up to get some clearance. But anyway, let's start with the kickstand first. Well, obviously I've already cut it off. So if I take, that's 4.5 inches, but I don't want the bike to stand straight up and down. I want it to have a little bit of lean. So maybe if I go 4 3/4 of an inch, let's try that first. So I'm gonna go back and cut 4 3/4 of an inch out of this. Now obviously we'll have to relocate the pin that holds the spring also, but let's get it down to the right length first. We'll tack it on there, get it out of the wheel chalk, and make sure that the lean, I don't want it to be so tall that the bike could fall back over to the other side, obviously. So, all right, what did I just say? 4 3/4 inches. We're gonna go chop out of that. Well, come on. Oh, I got a little booger from my welding. It's right on that thread. So I cut the 4 3/4 inches off and just tack welded these two pieces together. Yeah, that'll look pretty good. I think it might still be a little bit long. I think I might have to cut off another 1/2 inch maybe or so. Let's roll it backwards and see what it's going to look like. You know what? Actually, that's not got a bad lean to it. It doesn't really show up on camera. I want it to lean a little bit to the left, just so that it doesn't, fall back over to the right. But I hate it when they get too much lean. The kickstand gets bent or whatever. You know what? I think I'm actually gonna probably go with that for right now. So I'm gonna take that back off, weld that up. Weld that pin back on there for the spring, and then we'll move on to the exhaust. All right, so there you go. That's that shortened. I threw a little bit of spray paint on it. Well, that's drying. Let the paint dry before we mount it on there. I think we'll move around to the exhaust and see if we can't make some modifications on it. Here's what I'm dealing with on this exhaust. I went ahead and put one bolt in the opposite side of the engine cradle, and as you can see, I'm hitting here on the exhaust before I can get this bolt or the cradle to even come close to bolting to the bottom there. On some exhaust, it's not as bad, and I've actually gotten it close enough that I could, tweak this, bend these in and make them fit. But this one's so far off that I really need to do something to get the exhaust up higher so that mounts a little bit easier. So I'm going to take off the exhaust, that collar that fits up in the head. We're going to cut that off, see if we can't lower it down just a little bit, and when we reinstall it, it lifts this up. Now that may adjust this mount. We may have to wind up moving this mount, but we've got to get this to fit first before we worry about anything else. So I'm gonna grab some tools and take that. We'll pull the exhaust back up out of the head. Okay, so I pulled the exhaust off, and you can see how the exhaust has this little collar right here that fits up in the head. Well, I have round tubing that I believe, an 1¼ inch OD round tubing fits that really, really well. I'm sure this is metric, but this is a piece of 1¼ inch OD 095 wall round tubing. So my plan is to cut this off and then slide this piece on and re-weld it, at a little lower spot, which then will hopefully raise this enough to clear all that for the engine guard. Wish me luck. Let's see how this works. Well, as you can see, I've cut that piece off, and I just put a couple little tack welds, a couple spots, just to kind of hold that piece in place. Let's see how well it looks to fit. Fits up in there. Oh, good. And we still actually hit our mount up here. I'll put this on here just to kind of hold it in place for a second. All right, I'm going to take a second and we're going to bolt that on. big thing is, can we get the other bolt in this side? I need a longer bolt. Okay. The other issue I'm seeing, I need to trim off some of the back of this engine guard to fit these particular foot pegs. Oh, don't tell me that's so tight I can't get it out. There. All right, I've got to go and take a little bit of this off these pegs that I'm using. This hits before I can get the two holes to line up. So let me go trim a little bit off the excess off of that. I think we're good to go. All right, trimming that off of the back of that guard. I've got both bolts into the guard and the foot pegs. They're completely tight. This is pretty close to bolting up. I do not have the exhaust all the way bolted in tight. I just put one nut on it, just kind of hold it in place. So I might be able to take it up just a little bit higher, but I believe we're going to be really close right there, but I think I can get all that to work. So I need to pull it all back apart, finish welding the exhaust, then reinstall it all. I think that pretty much wraps that up. I've got it all bolted in. I've got just a wee bit of gap between the exhaust and here, so that shouldn't be a problem. Got the exhaust all bolted in. Got it all bolted in on both sides. I think the last thing I need to do is throw that on there, and that part of it's good. I think I'm ready to throw the chain on it, but before I do that, I want to do a sprocket change. Typically these aftermarket engines come with a pretty small counter sprocket and really gears it too low. Well, this one has a 15. That's a little bit better. A lot of times it's a 14 or smaller. If you went with a bigger, let's see, how would you do that? Yeah, you have to even go with a smaller yet to use the 15. I'm going to bump this up to a 17. And I think that's a 33. So I think we're going 1733 on this, which should make it run down the road pretty good. Now, I've said this many times. I'm going to say it again for you new guys that are just joined the channel. If you go to do a sprocket change, they make these aftermarket engines come with two different size spline shafts. Honda used a 17 millimeter, and I think they used it throughout their entire Mini line. But the aftermarket ones can be 17 millimeter or 20 millimeter. So this particular one is a 17. Why is it not going on there? There it goes. So you want to make sure that you get the right size sprocket to fit the shaft that the spline shaft that you have. And the other thing, most of these bikes, most guys use 420 chain, which is what I'm using here. So these sprockets have the right pitch and so forth, thickness, and for a 420 chain. So for this sprocket, I'll put a link in the description. It's I don't know if you can see it on there. It says 420-17T. That means it's a 420 chain. There's 17 teeth, and it doesn't have it printed on there, but this particular one fits a 17 millimeter spline shaft. Okay, now I think I think my chain might be extra long. I'm not sure. We're probably going to have to trim it, and I've got a mess here. Let's see, what am I doing? definitely going to have to trim it. Okay. I got greasy hands and I don't want to touch the bike. I don't have enough room. I think because the axle is slid all the way to the front. So I think that's where I want to take it off. I need to get a marker and mark that spot. Yeah, so I want to take off that link right there. So I'm going to go back in the shop, grind that off, cut that chain, and then I've got the chain comes with a master to put in it. And there again, I think that's a Amazon chain. I'll put a link to that in the description also. All right, there's that. Now, let's see if we can get it adjusted up. Okay, that looks good. Now we get to put our chain guard on that we modified to fit. That out. I might put a spacer back there so it's not going to rub the chain. Awesome. All right, guys. From this point on, I think it's just a matter of wiring it and firing it. So you've seen me wire before. Do I have any other parts to put on? I think everything else is ready to go. So I think I'm just going to get this wired up and bring you guys back in when we're ready to fire it up for the first time. Somebody remind me to check that bulb and that headlight. Make sure I have a 12-volt bulb in there. I tend to blow that bulb. Probably ought to check the tail light too, make sure what voltage I have. But anyway, be back in a second when we get ready to give her a kick. Well, viewers, there you go. I present to you the torch bike. What started off as a $100 mix of parts. It was a roller, no engine, 4 layers of paint. We used an acetylene torch and burnt all the paint off of it. Then started kind of building it back up. I spent $40, maybe $50 on rattle cans. That's a Metal Specs Retro Red. I used Mike's Mini Trail for the decals. He has in my opinion, some of the most authentic looking K0 decals, so I used those. If you remember right, this like I said, this was a real mix. It's actually a K1 frame. It had K0 forks on it. And so I just went with the K0 theme. I used everybody out there. Trail Buddy provided the harness. TB Parts had some stuff in here, headlights and levers. And I used Bart Moto maybe for the seat. SoCal Mini Trail for a few parts. It's got a unbranded Lifan engine in it, 125. But I'm pretty pleased with the way it turned out. I don't, you know, if you watch the channel at all, I don't typically paint a lot of bikes, but this one turned out pretty decent. You know, it's got some eBay and some Amazon parts also. So anyway, I think I'm ready to throw some fuel in it. I've got it all wired up, ready to go. So I didn't want to put any fuel in it or start it until I brought you guys along. So let's do that now. I probably should have ran fuel through that line before running it in, straight into the carburetor in case there was anything in the tank. It was a brand new tank, so I'm hoping there's nothing in it. Hope we didn't plug the carburetor right off the get-go here. All right. There's that. Don't have a battery in it. I do have all the lights hooked up. I've got the headlight running off of the stator, but it should power the stator should power the tail light also. All right, choke, key. I've got the headlight wired straight to the stator. It is coming on with the... Oh, I do not have, and I probably need to adjust the idle too. I do not have the tail light. Won't come on until I do the second click, I think. Yeah, there's the tail light. So I could rewire that headlight, take it from the yellow wire to a black wire, and get the headlight to come on with the key at the second click. I may do that. Almost impossible to find neutral when these things are running. This is a 1 down, 3 up engine. All right, there we go. All right, I think we're going to take it outside and take it for a spin. Well, here we go. A noisy speedometer. Uh-oh. dialed in. Let's go inside. Not 100% sure what I've got going on, but it sounds like I'm getting some chain or sprocket rubbing. So we're going to pull the cover off here real quick and just kind of inspect everything. Maybe take it for a spin without all this on here. I put a 17 tooth sprocket, which, you know, is big, but it should fit this just fine. It shouldn't be an issue. Of course, can't get to that with the... Yeah, you can see it right there. See these two marks right there? That's from the chain. So I may need to grind that down and clearance that. I'm going to take it for a spin real quick and just make sure, double check that that took the noise I was hearing, if that took that away. But I think that was my issue. That's what I kept hearing. All right, let me take it for a spin. I'll be right back. Yeah, definitely was the issue. Took it out for a ride with this cover off. No noise whatsoever. Man, she rides beautiful. So I have taken this cover and taken a little die grinder and clearanced this piece. So hopefully that should do it. If it doesn't, the chain will make its own clearance eventually. So, all right, I'm gonna throw that back on, button it back up. I do have a couple little things I have to do. This kickstand is a little too long. I'm gonna have to trim another 1/2 inch or so off of that to get it to, it just scares me a little bit on flat level ground. It stands up too tall, too straight. I need to do that. I think I got the carburetor dialed in. I think I have the clutch dialed in. I want to swap the headlight to run off of the when the engine, it's going to take the second key. I don't want it to come on with just on that first notch. I want it to work the way it worked when Honda made them. So I'll switch that. It just got a matter of just pulling the headlight off and swapping one wire. So I think I have the brakes pretty well dialed in, but anyway, let me throw this back on. I'll be right back. All right, guys, I think I'm gonna wrap today's video up with that. I've went through the bike and have it all dialed in. I've changed the things that needed to be changed when I last filmed a couple days ago, the kickstand and so forth. I am truly very happy with how this turned out. I've had this bike in storage for a couple of years, and I walk past it, you know, all the time when I'm going back and to look for parts and so forth. And I keep looking at this. I kept looking at this bike and thinking, wow, what an ugly little duckling that thing is, and it's going to need so much work. And it did need a lot of work. But you know, hopefully you enjoyed watching the process of stripping it down and building it back up. Now, I will say this is probably one of the more expensive bikes that I have built. I put a lot of new parts on this bike. I could have done it cheaper. I could have used some more used parts, but I decided to go ahead and see how well I could make this bike look, especially after the paint turned out pretty decent. So I'm not going to, I mentioned putting links in the description. I use so many parts on this that I'm not going to take the time to link all the parts. I will have, in the description, there will be just a list of the parts and what those parts cost me. I spent a little over $1,600 on this bike, and that's with the $100 that it cost me to buy it originally as a roller. But with all the new parts, you know, like I said, somewhere around, the parts cost me about $1,500 or just slightly over. And honestly, that's not too bad for what the end product, what we got to turn out. You know, to be able to build this for $1,500, $1,600, that's actually not too bad. So, all right. Now I know what the question is going to be now. What are you going to do with it now, Mike? I have a couple ideas. It is not currently for sale. I'm going to hang on to it for a couple more months, maybe, you know, slightly after the first of the year. You'll come back and you'll see this again. I've got something kind of up my sleeve, something I want to do that's going to involve you guys. So just kind of keep an eye out. But I hope you enjoyed the videos. I hope you enjoyed this build. And get out in your garage. You guys can do this. I'm not doing anything special. You know, just take a torch, burn the paint off, whatever you need to do. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. All the comments and everything. Have a great day. And we'll see you on the next build.